Okay, here we are in the revenue forecast. You'll notice a graph up the top here. We have two main lines we're following here. The gold line is revenue and the black line are expenses. Think of this kind of like a cross between an area chart and a Venn diagram. So when the revenue and expenses overlap, we shade that in gray. When expenses are greater than revenue, we shade that in red to show that you're losing money. And if revenue is higher than expenses, we shade that in gold to show that you're making profit. You also notice this lightly shaded in area, and that's from our prospective projects. So this is revenue that we're forecasting that hasn't necessarily been won yet. So we can scroll down and have a look at the tables here. We've got an overview of our profit. So we can see how much money we're making and losing each month. We've got a breakdown of our projects, which are grouped by status. So we've got our active projects up the top here and our prospective projects down the bottom. We can edit these values, so we can expand this and type in values like so. You can see that's starting to fill up our progress for the project. If we go over our agreed fee, it's going to color this in red to show us that we're billing more than what we've expected. All this information here in gray is actual values. So this will bring in invoice and changelog data. So in this case, this $1,000 is from the changelog for Dancing House. And you might end up in the situation where nothing's sort of really aligning to your agreed fee. A quick way of fixing this is by going into your projects, project list, and just make sure you've set up the dates that you want to distribute the fee over to, and you can just simply edit a value for the fee. It's going to bring up the save dialog, and you can tell the system to adjust your forecast accordingly. So now when we go back into the revenue forecast, we'll be able to see that Dancing House is now hitting 100% for all the agreed fee projections. Scrolling down, you have your staff expenses. This is worked out based off the staff pay rate and the number of working days in a month. And then we also have our overhead expenses down below, and you can set these up via the overhead expenses in the organization tab. So we currently have rent set up. Some people just set up general overhead. It's never going to be 100% accurate, but it's a good indicator of how the business is looking in the future. So you just need to set a start date for the expense, and you can tell it to repeat every number of 1 months. Save that, and then when we're back in the revenue forecast, you'll see general overhead down below. You can filter what projects you see in the revenue forecast, so we can say show filters. We can change what information, so we can say only show us actual data or only show us projected data if you wish. You can choose the date which you want your invoice data to land on, so it can be the issue date by default or the work completion date, or however you choose to forecast things forward. You can adjust the totals column to be total remaining fee if you choose. And contractor expense is just for contractor staff, so you can choose to forecast their expense to be their total available hours, or you can choose to make it their total allocated hours. So for allocated hours, the contractor expense will only be there if they've been allocated hours against a project. And we've got our filters down the bottom here. So you've got cost centers, project status, projects, staff, and expenses. So we can set this up. Some people might have a cost center per business location and some staff per business location. So we can set this up like so. I think we need to add in the staff cost center here to show the expenses, and maybe general overhead. So you can basically cut this however you choose and create the revenue forecast which suits your needs. If you want to export this, you can print via the print button or export to Excel via the export button. That should be everything you need to know about the revenue forecast. Thanks.